David, welcome to the Innovation Conversation. It's a real pleasure to have you here. I'm super excited because I met you guys a year in your team in the Good Festival of Speed. I'm actually quite excited about all this and what you guys are doing. Harry, I told Harry what are we doing, and he was like, we need to have them on the podcast, so thank you very much for coming here. Could you please tell our audience a bit about what you're doing, both in terms of the company you've created, but also the adventure itself? Because people are, they really want to know that.
Sure, yeah. Thanks a lot for inviting us on the podcast. We are Terren Electric Drive Systems, a startup company from Switzerland. And we are creating a dedicated EV platform for off-highway vehicles. So none of that passenger vehicle stuff, also no highway trucks. It's literally working machines, predominantly for underground mining, then municipal services and agriculture. So we don't want to be the manufacturer for the vehicle that goes out to the customer, but we want to supply vehicle manufacturers with a platform that has a fully integrated electric drive system, battery, everything ready, plug and play, and they build their special application on top of it.
Cool. So there's many applications. I know Harry loves smart cities, right, Harry? That's the correct terminology. He loves smart cities.
That's the correct terminology, yeah. We can, yeah, it's interesting to find out. You said EV vehicles, looking at batteries, looking at obviously autonomizing and creating stuff that's tailored towards a lot of individuals. So there's definitely areas that we're willing to pick your brain on.
Tell us a bit more about peak evolution. So I don't want to get it wrong, and I want to, for people just listening to the audio, I don't want to give them the wrong idea. So tell us exactly what peak evolution is and what's the adventure behind it, because it's quite interesting, I think.
All right. So, as I said, we are a startup and in a really competitive business. We got ourselves kind of a niche where we're convinced that we're going to be successful, but still EV, electric mobility is a very competitive niche. And there's many startups out there, and it's really hard to make a name for yourself. And also because it's like the industry is growing extremely quick. There is a shortage of components like batteries, motors, inverters, stuff like that. So the big manufacturers, they wouldn't even talk to a small startup, because unless you order 100,000 of whatever you need, 100,000 pieces, they are like not interested because they're too busy with the big customers. And also we just wanted to show what we're actually doing, because this whole mining, municipal service stuff sounds a bit boring, but actually we are convinced that this is a super interesting field and it has a huge impact in the end. And so we had the idea that we're gonna do this world record expedition with the first prototype vehicle that we're building. So we are very passionate mountain bikers and mountaineers. So I'm talking about me, my two friends are who co-founded the company. We spend a lot of time in the mountains, and we're always looking for higher summits to reach with our bikes, the mountain bikes. And one day we had the idea, we want to go to the highest point that anyone has ever been with a mountain bike. And this was about the same time as we were trying to buy batteries and motors and stuff for the prototype. And at that second, it kind of clicked in our heads and say, hey, let's not do it with our mountain bikes, but we are going to drive the vehicle to the highest point any vehicle has ever reached in history. And so this was basically the moment Peak Evolution was born, because we found this volcano in Chile where many people have tried before to set an altitude world record. So far, all with combustion engines. So there was, for example, a team with Unimox from Germany. They're actually Porsche themselves, they have tried. And then many rich people with their ATVs and all kinds of stuff. So it's like a kind of a competition who can reach the highest point on that mountain.
And
but
David,
everyone has done it.
I'm
Yeah,
just curious, how high is the mountain? Because this is something that.
it's 6,893 meters. So
Oh, wow,
it's
so that's
almost 21,000 feet, I think,
quite high.
something around that. It's
Yeah.
very high. It's like if you would climb Mount Everest, it's about the level where you would start wearing oxygen to keep going.
So
But it's
just
just below the level. Yeah.
I'm just going to explain this to your audience in case they don't know, but internal combustion engines need oxygen to operate, right? So the moment you go higher and higher, you have less oxygen in the atmosphere. Therefore, your car engine does not work at all. So it's literally struggling, and it gets to the point it literally shuts down because it doesn't have enough oxygen for the mixer, right? But you guys circumvent this
Exactly.
because you're running on batteries.
Yeah.
So you
That was also one of the ideas we had. Like, let's show just one of the huge advantages that electric vehicles have, because
yeah,
those other guys, they sometimes they had to run their engines 24 hours a day. I mean, you are there for this expedition. You have to be there a few days or weeks, and they had to
yeah,
run them 24 hours a day, because if they shut them down, and then they cool down, like the temperatures are between -10 to -20 degrees. So if those engines cool down, they will just never start again. So they basically kept them running most of the time. And that was for us, it was ridiculous.
Mhm. So this is actually quite interesting because you're going to prove two things. First, that batteries can go further, to the highest point that any vehicle has ever been, which is pretty cool all by itself. But also, you can showcase to some of your potential clients that you can actually operate in a lot of negative temperatures as well, right? And this is a big issue with batteries because their optimal range is never. We always think it's going to be 25 degrees, but actually they might be used when it's very, very cold or snowing and stuff like that. So how do you compensate for this? How do you prepare for this?
I mean, yeah, for sure, we want to show, like, down in the desert, we're going to have like temperatures 35, 40 degrees, and up on the
Mhm.
mountains, it's going to be down to -20 degrees. And in the end, for the batteries, that's not a big deal, like passenger EVs, they are also made for these temperatures. So the battery can be cooled, it can be heated.
Mhm.
That's pretty, like, I wouldn't say standard, like most vehicles should be able to handle this. But what we also want to show is just that the whole system
Yeah.
actually can handle all the extreme temperatures and the extreme terrain as well.
Mhm.
So just because in the end, we're gonna simulate the work in an open pit mine, in agriculture, everything at once. There is no need for any more explanations. Oh, can your vehicle do this? Can your vehicle do that? And then
Yeah.
just watch the movie, because we're gonna do like a documentary about everything, of course.
Mhm.
But we said just watch the movie, and then you'll see what the vehicle can do. That's basically the goal.
So there's literally no limits on what you're gonna do. That's quite interesting because instead of building a very complicated sales deck and saying we can do all these things and we've tested it here, we're literally gonna say, look at the movie. We've done it all. You can see it, and it's actually us doing it. Which brings me to my next question:
Yeah.
How are you gonna charge the batteries? I know it already because I saw your vehicle, but our audience and also Harry, how are you gonna do this?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, because the mountain is in the Atacama Desert, and
Mhm.
it's around 350 kilometers away from the closest civilization.
Yeah.
So there's no people around, and obviously no electricity, but we will bring a mobile solar power plant. So
Okay.
we on top of the vehicle, we have 8 square meters of solar panels, but then we
Yeah.
have more 30 square meters that we can put out on the ground, which
Mhm.
gives us around 10 kilowatt peak of power to charge it.
Nice. So what's the range? Does the altitude impact the daily range you're gonna have with this, or not really?
I mean, the altitude is definitely good for solar charging, because
Yeah.
the colder it is and the thinner the atmosphere above the solar panels, the more efficient they will get.
Hmm.
That's a bonus for us, but
Yeah.
still the solar charging is rather slow compared to a fast charger, where you stop over with your EV and charge it in 20 minutes. We have to say it takes roughly 10 hours, well, I'd say 8 hours of perfect sunshine to fully charge the battery from 0 to 100. But you don't get that in one day, because in the morning the sun is very flat and in the evening it's very flat. So we probably would have to stay 2 days in a place to fully charge the battery.
Can I ask you a quick
But
question?
this is actually, yeah.
What's your main market? Is it the UK, or is it looking at international? Or you mentioned you were kind of in the Nordic areas.
It's international.
International.
Yeah. No, actually Chile, because we are going to do this record in Chile, and at the same time Chile is actually one of the biggest markets, potential markets, because it's one of the biggest mining nations in the world.
Oh yeah, good point.
Exactly.
How you finding, because you're actually doing something completely out of the box, how are you finding the conversations with investors? Are they super open to the idea, or they actually want to see the movie and then they're gonna invest? How is that working?
We you say out of the box, but in the end there is like those mining operators, they have already started with electrification. They have they hire various companies, for example, to make their Toyota Hiluxes electric, for example, or they say I want to have this dumper electric, because for them it's they can see it black and white on their numbers, how much money they spend on ventilation and AC for the underground mine shafts, because every kilowatt of heat and every bit of pollution that is emitted somewhere down there has to be removed, and they have huge systems to cool these mines, and sometimes it's half the operating cost of the whole mine is just for ventilation, and they can clearly see the benefit of electrifying their fleet on the ground, and it's already happening.
So how can you justify the costs with them as well? Because I know you're talking about Chile and other areas around there. They're typically third world countries, and the vehicles that they're using, they're not little tiny vehicles. These are 50, 60 ton dump trucks as well. And it's just, what is some of the objections you get towards that? Because again, it's a vehicle that probably costs around 2 million plus. It runs on oil, which is obviously cheaper. It's more beneficial. Have they come back to you and said, hey, I'm not really that interested because one, it's not really working. And the second part of that question is two, if you're applying this for agriculture, one big thing that no one really talks about is that plants often like CO2 emissions from these, say, vehicles or emitting transportation devices. And what you often find is with agricultural vehicles, even though they're polluting it, that pollution is actually really good for the yield and the growth of these crops as well. So it's kind of like swings and roundabouts on that side. I saw Ricardo's face because if you're looking to grow, you never know that, because what you can do is you can actually get a polytunnel, put an old car engine in there, let that run for around an hour or so, and you're actually emitting CO2 emissions. Remember, plants absorb CO2. That's how they feed and grow. So when you look on the side of the road, their plants are actually a lot nicer than the ones you see sometimes on the field with all the clean, fresh air, because there's no food for them. It's a weird one, but yeah.
No, I mean, okay. There's a bunch of questions in one that I can try and go through them. First, I mean, the plant growing with CO2. That's actually an interesting point. It of course, that works. They grow quicker. CO2 is basically their nutrition, but I think putting an old engine in your greenhouse and running it is probably the worst way you can make your plants grow quicker. I mean, literally, it's the worst.
Don't go
way,
in, you're dead.
Because that anyway. But it's actually being done, especially in Switzerland. I mean, I can go off on a topic, but we have garbage burning facilities, and there's a Swiss company that actually removes CO2 straight from the chimney, from the exhausts, from the garbage-friendly facility, and they sell their CO2. It's pure, clean CO2. There's no, all the dirty shit that comes out of an ice engine. The soot and the nitrous oxides and all of that stuff. So they sell their pure CO2 to farmers around, and they blow it into the greenhouses. So this is an actual business. It's been done, but I don't think any farmer would think like, oh, I don't have a smoky diesel engine going through my field. That
you haven't come to you've seen the UK ones yet.
Noisy. Noisy all day. I have the vibrations all day. I have the noise all day, but I will still want to do it because my plants grow quicker. I don't think that happens. So that is not a concern. Like it only has advantages in agriculture. And when it comes to the mining, you were talking about the huge trucks, those 100-ton dumpers. But our system, maybe I didn't specify it before, the platform we are building is for vehicles ranging from 7 to 15 tons in gross weight. So it's modular, you can have different battery sizes and all of that. But the axle, everything is always the same. Just maximum gross weight would be around 15 tons, and minimum that is still reasonable with those axles is 7 tons. So we're looking at mostly those vehicles in underground mines that are used for crew transport, for concrete spraying machines, for example. They have to kind of cover the tunnels sometimes with a spray concrete. They have water tanks, cranes, all kinds of stuff. So it's not a heavy hauling in the mining, but it's kind of everything around that you need to keep the mine running. Just an example, we were talking to a mine in Portugal, and they are currently operating 150 Toyota Hiluxes, in underground. And that's just the fleet that they use, to haul equipment around, have people. And they have many vehicles in this kind of category. And the Hiluxes actually are not ideal for it because, they have kind of limited payload, they have limited space. So if you can offer them a vehicle that is slightly bigger, more capable, and electric, they are really interested in that.
So this goes back to your video about let's prove concept. I'll go to you and say, hey, I know most people want to do test beds and trials to validate the idea. This is the true test bed and trial, which is going through all these really hard and ludicrous terrains to show this is what it can do. This is how sustainable it is. You really need this. Is that kind of the whole idea behind this approach you're doing?
Yeah. So basically, they would see it. They would say, this could be something for me. And then we can get in contact. And then obviously they want a trial on site. But, it's not like you're selling them some CGI that could be interesting potentially,
No, it's quite fascinating what you're doing. What about cities? I mean, you mentioned there's a lot of applications for cities as well, for them to use in municipal vehicles, maybe to collect trash or to just use for gardening. How are you finding that market per se? Do a lot of people reach out to you already, or is it still very dormant and you're still struggling to get into the market?
In this is actually the less that the initiative comes from the cities or the communities, but I mean, this is maybe a bit Switzerland specific, or like also Austria, Germany. I would say our region of Europe, kind of the German speaking part. A lot of communities already have put laws in place that when some vehicle has to be replaced, for example, they have some kind of truck they use for forestry work or for garbage collection, all that stuff. When it is replaced, it has to be replaced with an electric vehicle if there is one on the market. So that is a law, that is not a choice. Obviously, there will be trial runs. The vehicle has to fulfill those kind of tasks they need. But if there is one, even if it costs more than a diesel one, they have to buy it by law. And the average operation time of those vehicles is around 12 to 15 years. So they stay with a community for that long. For example, in Switzerland, obviously there's a lot of mountains, and almost every village has one or two of these vehicles for snow removal, for garbage collection, all of that stuff. And maybe some of them, they will have to ask themselves in 5 years or so, okay, we need a new one, but basically we're not allowed to buy a diesel powered one. And this will be like a matter of going around and kind of introducing this to those municipalities and showing it there. And yeah, if we can fulfill the needs, we have a sure business there.
Good. I'm just thinking, probably the operating costs are also a little bit lower, right? Because if you're running on batteries and electricity, you don't need to worry about changing the oil, for example. I'm thinking even the brakes. I don't know if you have some type of braking system involved in the vehicle or not, but they also don't need to brake as much, right? Because you have that's also charging the batteries. How does that work in terms of when you compare them side by side? Yours probably comes up on top, no?
Yeah, exactly. That's our main selling point, because like we are not environmentalists or like trying to save the world. We are like we know a lot enough about the the whole topic, like what has what effect, how much can you achieve with this. We're not going to save the world with it, but we can actually sell these vehicles purely from an economical viewpoint. The mining operators, they don't come to us because they love because they think, oh, we can be carbon neutral in 20 years. They see mostly the finances behind it, because we can right now with the batteries that are still very expensive, and also the electric motors that are still expensive, we can say that we have, after about 7 years, the TCO of our vehicle is lower than a diesel powered vehicle if you're using it around 500 hours a year.
It's
So
really good for anyone.
yeah. So like a typical municipality would use their vehicle around 500 hours a year. A mining operator would use it up to 2,000 hours a year. So you can imagine how, like in a mine, how quick it would pay off. And even for a municipality, the purchasing price is a lot higher at the start. But then, because of the lower operation costs, the TCO really soon becomes lower. And for that reason, actually, we can show it just from an economical standpoint that it makes sense to replace your vehicle.
It's funny you mentioned economics. In terms of raising capital for this idea, how hard is it? Because you actually, some companies only have a software solution and it's all about cloud space, buying cloud space and then creating it and development costs. But you actually have a physical product, which I'm assuming needs a really big not big manufacturing, but you need some manufacturing facilities. You need to buy equipment. How does that work? How hard is it to get investment just to get the idea off the ground?
Yeah, it's obviously it's a huge difference. Like industry is like a really kind of slow business in terms of it takes a lot of time from the idea to when it first actually generates revenue. It's not like an app that you can code in a few months or so and then you throw it out and improve it. It's like, also you don't have like too many chances. You can have like 1-2 series with some little difficulties, but you need to have a product that actually works and the customer is happy with. So actually we want to wait till we have the vehicle, not even the one that is now, but the next prototype that will be close to series, before we actually going out to investors to take in capital. We have so far been able to 100% fund the construction of the first prototype from like we have one how do you call it, like a support research program from the Swiss government that we have been able to acquire. Then we have done a crowdfunding campaign actually, and the next prototype we are looking to finance with the backing of a potential future customer.
Okay.
So actually we want to have a vehicle that is, or like, I mean the platform that is close to a series production. So when we raise capital, we are only going to raise the capital to set up mass production. So, you know, the product is already there, the customer is already there. What we will need is, like, obviously the facilities, you know, to build this, and a lot of capital, you know. Let's say the batteries in a normal configuration would be around $100,000 or 100,000 francs, you know. Let's say you want to build 50 vehicles. So in 1 year, in the first year or something, just to buy the raw materials, you know, with this, the battery market currently is like that you have to order at least 1 year ahead of time, and you have to pay. You know, it's not like they deliver something to you and then you pay a month later or 2 months later. You pay in advance for a year's supply. So we are looking probably at around 25 to 30 million francs that we would need to set up the production. Like,
I'll ask you a quick question on the production.
Yeah, sure.
Where would you be doing it? Would you be looking to follow suit and do it in the UK, or say, no, I want to find somewhere else that's more affordable, better, and other people of a better standard? Where would you be looking to do it as well?
I mean,
on the spot.
It's maybe also a bit okay, we're gonna have our own production, but we would also license the production to other manufacturers if they are interested. For example, a manufacturer of, let's say, personnel carriers for the mining industry. If they say, yeah, but if we buy this platform from you and we just put the people, like the crew cabin on top, where is our kind of value, added value? You know, we need to do something more ourselves. Then we say, okay, look, we're gonna help you. You can make them yourselves. You can do the whole assembly yourself. You buy a license, kind of, you know. You get the software, you get the parts.
I'm sorry, audience. We had a little technical problem, so David's going to continue with what he was saying. So
all right.
The conversation. So sorry about that, David. If you want to go ahead and tell us about the maintenance of the vehicle.
Okay. So of course, we're gonna have these manufacturers producing the platform in a license, and we're just gonna do the maintenance, all the warranty stuff. But then we want to set up our own production for like small customers that don't want to set up their own production. And actually, we really would like to do it in Switzerland, because this whole COVID pandemic has shown us how vulnerable the companies get that outsource everything. And we actually can source a lot of the components from, the German-speaking region. Like, we are working with Bosch drivetrains, like motors, inverters. We're looking at also the gears, and everything is made around here. And the production process should be like as automated as possible. You know, it's not as labor intensive as it used to be. And for that, Switzerland is actually not a bad place to start. So if possible, we would like to keep it here.
Do you mind elaborating more on why Switzerland's a really good place? Because I know a lot of the Nordic regions, they've been expanding out lately because there was a huge brain drain. A lot of graduates or individuals doing high-end jobs, computing, electronic engineering. They sought jobs in other regions because obviously affordability is very expensive in those regions. But now I think over the years, it's been quite apparent that they're trying to put a lot of investment into the own regions in order to attract more people, bring them back, retain their own graduates, keep entrepreneurship inside, but also create strategic links with other countries to kind of help you expand into something that's called a soft landing. Just going back to the point, would you be able to kind of expand what are the key initiatives that might be going on in Switzerland that keep you there, apart from obviously you living there?
No, I mean, Switzerland is probably one of the places, where all the smartest people in the world come to work. It's like, it's probably one of the best places to find high-skilled workers. We have extremely good universities, and we have a lot of tech companies. Like Switzerland is the biggest office of Google in outside of the US.
Right.
So there's 5,000 people working for Google in Switzerland. The IBM Research Center is in Switzerland, like stuff like that. But there's a lot of stuff also going on in e-mobility, and like in the neighboring village where we are, there is the company Pröschel, and they are manufacturing components, for example, for Nikola,
Okay.
for the trucks, the hydrogen trucks. It's quite a hotspot actually for this EV technology. So apart from, of course, the labor cost and living cost is high, but all the other circumstances are perfect to set up.
What about funding as well? So how's the government kind of helping you out as well? You mentioned you got a grant just to do some research, kind of help put the idea together. Are the local councils and governments, in some sense, playing ball? Have they created better incentives for startups and entrepreneurs to create new businesses? Give them funding to validate ideas? Because we have a program in the UK called TRIG, which is a Transport Research Innovation Grant, where we help, CPC, we help SMEs essentially test and validate their ideas within the transport space. Is that something that's going on within your region as well?
Yeah, exactly. No, there has been a lot of programs from the government trying to encourage the innovation in this sector. And I mean, it is, there's upsides and downsides. The good side, for example, is we got this money from the government without we don't have to repay it. There is there is no very strict guidelines what we have to do with it or an outcome, which is super nice. We were able to build this prototype partly because of this money, but then the downside is it's quite slow. So the bureaucratic process we had to go through to get this money was extremely tough. It was one of the most exhausting things I've done in the past years. It's like 50 pages of number crunching and description, what you do, why you do, and all of that. Once you're through that and you have the money, then you're free to go and you can really take it for the purpose you think is right. But to get it is a bit slow. I don't know if it's still like this, but those Silicon Valley times where you show up with a pitch deck and a
Here's
great idea, and some investor just hands you out the money, and it's quick, and everyone wants to do stuff, while government side is just everything goes a bit slower, and maybe it takes half a year, and then it takes another few months and stuff like that. But sure, the government funding is super helpful.
Okay.
So no, I was just asking. So David, if people want to find you, how can they find you? Obviously, can you this is the moment where we kind of ask our guests to plug in whatever they're doing. And can you just tell our audience where can they find you? How can they reach out to you? If they want to follow YouTube, follow all the cool things you're doing. So this is your moment. So shine away.
Yeah, sure. No, we that's what we live off. Of course, we want people to follow us on Instagram and YouTube. Just search for Peak Evolution. It will come up straight away. And if you want to know more actually about our business, about the EV platform, Google Terren Electric Drive Systems. Type in terrenmotors.com. You'll come straight to our website where there's all the details about the platform. And there will be also the links again to YouTube and Instagram.
Nice. Thank you very much for your time, David. I'm
Thank you.
really looking forward to seeing you guys going up the tallest mountain and actually following you on YouTube and all that. So
Yeah,
sounds quite
sure.
cool.
Thanks to you.
Thank you. All right, that is it. Hold on.